Valentine?
Here.
Mr. Blash?
Here.
Mr. Daly? Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
And if it's appropriate, I will recognize Mr. Dewey Spees as a voting member for today's meeting. We don't know.
Just so we know when we get here, we have to tell.
I would ask everyone in the room to please silence all electronic devices, and I will do that since I am the biggest culprit of not doing it. I will do mine right now. Thank you for your appeals. Any aggrieved party may appeal a decision of this board, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, to the 22nd District Court. Get that right? Very good. Speaker cards, if you haven't filled out a speaker card, they're available up there. And I've got 3 cards so far, but if there's anyone else that would like to speak, please fill out a card, turn it in. Public speaking, we'll have, the petitioner will have 10 minutes to speak. Any opposition will have another 10 minutes to speak. And then rebuttals will have, each side will have 5 minutes after that to make a rebuttal. And the time will be right up here. And you can see how much time you got. After each case is completed, I would ask that everybody associated with that case, please leave the building and exit quietly out so we can continue on with the agenda. Anything else?
You got it.
There you go. The next item on the agenda is election of officers. We put that on the agenda, so I would like to open the floor for a motion from anybody or discussion about officers. Or who would you like to be your officers?
I would like to nominate Mr. Tom Valentine as chair for this particular Board of Adjustments for St. Tammany Parish.
And we have, Mr. Daly has arrived now. So we have the chairman, Mr. Blake.
Mr. Chairman, I'd second the motion, Ms. Thomas Mead.
I have a motion and a second on the election of a chairman. Any further discussion? And so we can vote one time. Can I nominate somebody for vice chairman?
I think you have to vote first. Mr.
If you have a motion second on the chairmanship,
You have to
go ahead
vote.
and
Okay.
and then do the vice chair.
Okay, vote with your screen.
And all members can vote, sitting in,
All members can vote.
yes.
Very good.
Election of officers.
Motion carries.
Motion passed. Thank you. Now we need to elect a vice chairman. And I would nominate Ms. Thomas to my right as vice chairman of the board.
I'll second.
And I've got a second. Any discussion? We'll then vote with your screen. Thank you. We have
Motion
officers.
carries.
The next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting, the October 5th meeting. If everyone has had a chance to review the meeting minutes, any comments about the minutes? Or I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I hear a second? And a second by Mr. Blush. Please vote with your screen.
Motion carries. All in favor?
Are we going to continue to recognize Mr. Spees as a sitting member, or since we've not heard cases yet, have Mr. Daly resume his role?
Can we have 6?
You cannot have 6.
I'd like to have 6. All right, so With the arrival of Mr. Daly, Mr. Spees, you will now be a substitute or alternate member, and the voting member will be Mr. Daly. Are we all good with that? All right, moving on to the cases for today. Our first case is BOA case number 2573. Request by an applicant in an A4 single-family residential zoning district to waive a required 5-foot rear yard setback for a pool. The property is located at 14089 South Lakeshore Drive, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant and representative is Mr. Matthew Champagne. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the installation of a 260-square-foot pool up to the rear property line. Although the property extends 19 feet beyond the rear property line before reaching the existing bulkhead, the requested variance is a personal preference rather than a property hardship.
Sir, I take it this is your case. Please introduce yourself, your name and address, please, for the record.
May it please the board, Matthew Champagne. I am the applicant. My address is 14089 South Lakeshore Drive, Covington, Louisiana, 70435.
Proceed with any comments you have in favor of this.
And just briefly, has anyone not had the opportunity to read or go over my full application? Then I won't waste the board's time repeating what is already in here. I will respond, though, that this is more in the nature of a hardship than a personal preference. A personal preference would be a color or the shape of the coping that might go around the pool. This is a hardship in that going back to the 80s, the surveys show that the full 39 feet behind my home has been used, has had a boat slip on it. Multiple constructions have gone on it. Every neighbor that I've shown through surveys and through Google images, they have used it and built constructions on that. At one point, my next door neighbor has his entire home built on the property line. I'm asking to build 13 feet across to the property line itself, which is 20 feet from the rear of my home. So the total amount of construction of this pool that would be on the property line is 13 feet. There's an entire home next door that's built on the property line, and presumably the parish gave Mr. Euler, who built that home, a variance to do that. I've gotten a no objection from that neighbor, who would be the only one who would even be able to see or would be in any way affected by the pool. But of course, since his house is built on the property line, if the pool were built at the property line, he wouldn't even be able to see the pool. If the pool were built that way, there'd be another 19 feet of soil and grass, which I've already built a deck across between the pool and the next neighbor behind my home is Lake Ramsey. There will never be a neighbor there. There will never be anybody who will ever be affected by this pool. Relying on the research that I had done and how much had been built on that property behind my home, even beyond the legal property line, which I had not pulled the irons on to see exactly where that was. Relying on that much space, a professional pool builder by the name of Caribbean Pools came out, drew pictures and quoted me a price. I've made a down payment on the pool in July and only subsequently realized that despite the fact that he has my money, I can no longer build this pool. And while he assures me that he can make any space beautiful, there is a minimum on the pools. If I build a 10 by 10 pool, it costs me about $40,000. If I build a 13 by 20 pool like I'm asking, it's going to cost me about $40,000. And so the price per square foot goes up substantially if this variance request is denied. As I pointed out in my narrative, while I understand in many, and probably the vast majority of circumstances, it's probably a good idea to have a pool not built any closer than 5 feet from your property line, because that would presume that there's somebody that lives there. You don't want people building pools to the fence line. But the spirit of that would be the spirit of this ordinance. But the spirit of this ordinance is not served in my particular circumstances. And I'm not sure how, but I've even provided proof that there are pools that are built directly on the lake. Structurally, I would not even ask to do that, because I realize that pool is going to push the bulkhead over one day, and the pool is going to be in the lake. And so I could understand if there was no distance between the pool and my actual bulkhead, that the parish wouldn't want to see my pool in Lake Ramsey. But it will not be. There's 19 feet of dirt before a bulkhead hits, and then there's a lake. And so I just asked that, based on those points, that the board would consider granting this variance so that I can move forward in moving this pool and effectively not bother anybody.
Very good, thank you. Any opposition to this case for the pool on Lakeshore Drive? Seeing none, I open up to the board, and I see a question by Mr. Blush.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Champagne. I just have a couple of questions for you. First, so that 19 feet that you're representing on the survey or on the sketch, I think that I saw, is that considered a common area for Lake Ramsey? Is it a servitude of sorts, or just what is that strip and who owns that?
No, sir, it is not a servitude or a common area at all. It is a mystery. It is a mystery as to exactly who owns it. But I will tell you that if you're familiar at all with the concept of acquisitive prescription,
I am.
I wish I would pay good money for somebody to find somebody to sue me over that property, because I will win in court through tacking and acquisitive prescription. If I knew who to sue, I would have already sued them, taken it from them, and moved my irons. That's the complication. When Lake Ramsey first got started, it was a gravel pit, right? Right. And then John Mamalidis, who is at the time the district attorney of Jefferson Parish, is somehow rolled up into the ownership of this lake and this property, along with some other people. Then the 80s comes, and people are doing what's referred to as a déchet en paiement, which is a giving in payment back to the banks because they can't make the mortgages due to the inflation. So then more and more companies come in, and they're buying and they're selling these properties. Well, this dirt just appeared. I have tried to track down where this dirt comes from. It was always there, and it's been there all the way back. I have surveys in here, I think, at least to the 80s and possibly in the 70s. So it's always been there. And if you look at the acts of sale of all my neighbors, and even with me, the acts of sale are very careful about how they word it, but they are selling you a legal property description of 100 feet, but acknowledging that every one of these properties along that strip is actually roughly 140. No, 120. Actually, roughly 120 feet. And so, as I've said, this land has just always been used, and nobody went back to change the legal property descriptions. So, does it belong to me? Yes. I just cannot get my property description changed until somebody either sues me or tells me who the proper party is to sue. I could sue John Mamalidis. I could sue everybody here. All of your defenses would be, you win, bud, but I don't own that property, so you didn't win anything from me. I would just have to sue people until somebody finally went, all right, you caught me. That was mine the whole time. You got it. So I'm stuck.
Okay.
It's my backyard. They can't take it. And if they try, I guarantee that I have proved just in this document, I can tack back 30 years. Even with bad faith, I've corporeally possessed it. It's mine. But I can't get my legal property description changed until somebody sues me or says that they are the ones who need to be sued.
Okay. All right. I think that's about it for me.
Ms. Thomas, you have a
Yeah, Mr.
question?
Chairman, we have had similar cases to this along the lines, and based on what Mr. Champagne has articulated also, we have been usually prone to grant that type of a variance just based on the sheer circumstance. So I understand your frustration. You are not the first, and I'm pretty sure not the last to come and ask.
Did I hear a motion in there?
I am happy to that the request by applicant to waive the required 5-foot rear yard setback for a pool be granted by this Board of Adjustments.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this case? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favors?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much. How do I proceed from here?
Invite us to your pool party.
We can do it.
Thanks, Sid Campbell.
Call
Thank you.
staff tomorrow.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is BOA case number 2574. BOA, request by applicant in an HC3 highway commercial district to appeal the decision made by parish officials that an existing sign has lost its legal non-conforming status due to the sign being abandoned for a period of more than 180 days. Being altered to make the sign less in compliance with the requirements and changing the sign face to differ from the original sign message. Additional variance requests increase the maximum allowable square footage of a single occupancy sign from 32 square feet to 126 square feet. Increase the maximum allowable height from 9 feet to 22 feet, and increase the maximum allowable changeable message sign dimensions from half of the sign face to the entire sign face. The property is located at 1001 North Highway 190 in Covington. The owner is TJ&C Real Estate Holdings. The representatives are Mr. Jerry Coogan. Staff comments, please.
The location of the sign is on Highway 190 in Covington. It's the existing Times-Picayune sign, which has been in existence around 17 years.
Is there a mic?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Go ahead.
The sign doesn't meet current sign ordinance and is therefore considered legal nonconforming in its current state, which is okay. This case was originally advertised as losing its legal nonconforming status due to abandonment. That's actually not the case. After further review, we realized that the sign was never abandoned because it always existed. The issue before you deals more in the sign becoming more nonconforming than it currently is. Per our legal nonconforming sign code, once you alter a sign to make it less in compliance than our ordinance currently allows, you lose its legal nonconforming status. So the applicant has come to us with a proposal to replace the sign face. It's a 1-to-1 conversion for square feet. The sign currently is 126 square feet. The applicant is proposing to replace it with a 126 square foot changeable message sign, which makes it less in compliance with our sign ordinance, because our sign ordinance only allows half of a total sign face to be changeable message. So per the legal nonconforming sign code, they would automatically lose their nonconforming status. So a vote in favor of this request would allow the applicant to replace the 126 square foot sign with a 126 square foot changeable message sign on an existing 22-foot pole. And a vote not in favor would require them to either change the sign face to be in compliance with our sign code, or at least not exacerbating the existing situation.
Thank you. Is Mr. Coogan here, and would you like to speak on your case?
Thank you. I'm Jerry Coogan with Coogan Inc. Thank you for the opportunity to hear this case. Real briefly, Mr. Terrell's been in the parish in business for 24 years. He's been at this location now for 7 years. I believe you're going to have another case follow ours similar to this, in that when he bought the building, he actually paid for and had architectural drawings drawn up to build a new Genesis car dealership. But that was a period of time, if you remember, when the economy really took a dive. He changed his mind and instead moved 7 companies that he owns, and that's their administrative offices. So instead of building a new dealership, they moved into that as an administrative building. But during that period, it took longer than 6 months, and we did not, and we're not aware that there was a time limit to do something with a sign while you considered what you were going to do as developing the property. Since then, he moved one dealership, Eddie Terrell Hyundai, to another dealership he bought, which, if you know, on the service road was Kia. So now it opened up more room for his Nissan, and he no longer needed to develop it as a dealership. So he's going to maintain the building as an administrative building. With the 7 companies, though, the only dispute I would make on the write-up is that this is not a single occupancy, more than it occupies 7 different companies. In your narrative, we listed the companies' names so you could see them. And basically, he's looking to modernize his sign to advertise both his companies and the 3 dealerships that he owns.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions at all?
Well,
Is there any opposition?
let me ask if there's any opposition to this case present in the room. Seeing none, we'll open it to questions from the board. Mr. Blash?
Okay, I want to be clear on this. So basically, our ordinance would allow for a half changeable sign, or not at all?
No, the legal department was asked to look at this application, and we did thorough research, including the case law and a lot of the Attorney General's opinions. And no, pole signs since 2007 have been prohibited in St. Tammany Parish. This is considered a pole sign. It's right now a legally non-conforming sign because it's been in existence since before 2007. So it's allowed to stay as is. They could even change the message to a static Eddie Terrell's Nissan sign, as long as it stayed it's the same height, same dimensions. But you cannot make a legally non-conforming sign more non-conforming, and making it a changeable message sign would make it more non-conforming. So let me, actually, I answered no too quickly.
Okay.
Because, yes, our variances would allow you, no. I'm sorry, this has been very complicated, we've been going back and forth. No, you cannot grant a variance on a legally non-conforming sign,
Okay.
because it would make it more non-conforming.
Okay. Wouldn't that, I'm just confused, because that's the nature of a variance, is to go against the conforming.
I'm confused too.
Precedent, you know, that, to me, that's confusing. I'll just say, are we allowed legally to, if there is a trend towards a certain thing, to be able to make a variance? In other words, it might be in conflict, or it might be a non-conforming use at this point, but if it furthers the parish's interest, I'll just say it that way, is that something we can move forward to do?
Yes, we would just ask that you take that legal advice into consideration.
Okay.
In making that ruling. So yes, if because today's ordinances allow a 50% changeable message sign, and that was the decision of the board, technically speaking, that's something you could do,
Okay.
but also it's something that the parish government could challenge if they so decided.
Right, I understand.
Ms. Thomas, you have a question?
I think it was answered. I'm still a little confused. I'm hearing, yes, we can, I mean, it is a variance, and they've come, I'm not the only one that has driven to New Orleans and every place else, and every place does have these signs that are, I guess, non-conformance, but they do offer messaging that helps the customer find where they want to go and what multiple areas are there. So, it's not, I'm just saying, so what I'm hearing you say, I think, is that we can keep the sign conformant to the non-conformant conformancy, and half of it can then conform
No, I'm confused again.
to half of it. Is that right? That's about as clear as
It's complicated. I mean, basically, the case law said that you cannot grant a variance on a legally non-conforming use. But if you're going to grant a variance, it at least should be in accordance with our code provisions, which would require a, no more than 50% change rule message.
Okay.
Could I comment on that for a second? I actually met with our District Attorney Warren Montgomery and the Assistant AD that worked on this and posed a question that he could not answer, and that the parish has the power, this board has the power, to negotiate. And when I say that, one of the things I wanted to show is that this is the existing sign. If you haven't looked in your packet, I'm sure you've seen the Times-Picayune on it. And what Mr. Terrell is allowed to do by code, across the street at the Gulf Coast Bank Building, they have 3 signs on 3 sides of the building. He could add more signage to his building, which is in your packet also, which he is foregoing by just updating and modernizing the existing sign. If he can't get that, then he's also allowed to put a permit request in for a multi-tenanted video changeable sign and start from scratch. So what he's asking to do is utilize the asset he has and just change what's there now. One of the options that we discussed was lowering it to a monument sign, but that would create a safety concern. As I spoke with Mr. Leonard, it would block looking down southbound 190 traffic, which could cause an accident. So it's either keep it up, lowering it is going to create a safety hazard.
I see, I'll come back to you, Mr. Blush. Mr. Daly, you have a question?
I guess that somewhat answers. I wanted to know what the alternative was to code for the sign for the property, which would be, as you said, the 3 signs and a multi-tenant changeable message. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Mr. Buchter?
Yeah, I guess I got a question here. If changing the sign and what is there doesn't meet parish guidelines, you see what I'm saying? You say you want to change it to what is there.
What we want to do is remove the copy that's no longer applicable to the address and put an electronic changeable sign that he could advertise all of his businesses and his 3 car dealerships on one site without introducing new signage,
Okay.
which would be his right.
Okay, all right.
Are you, okay, Mr. Blush?
And Ms. Thomas, you bring up a very good point. This is something that, I guess one of my little pet peeves, all the sign after sign after sign. If you go down, and I'm not disparaging, Metairie in any way, but the signage along Veterans Highway is just so many signs. And I've always been a proponent, if you can limit it to 1 sign with a changing message, not to the point where it's distracting or anything like that. There are ways to do this. To me, it just cleans up the whole area. It doesn't become a cluster of signage. And that's, for me, that has always been the better alternative than to have a ton of signs. And that's just my own personal preference. I know that other people feel the same way. And and I think, like you had mentioned too, Ms. Thomas, that it's a great opportunity to be able to show people where things are without having those extra signs. And I think that's, the whole purpose of a sign. So that's just my opinion of it.
If I could, real quick, two things. We would adhere to the existing changeable message center sign code, which means you have to hold the messages at 8 seconds at a time. And in the nighttime mode, it dims by 60% automatically with brightness. And finally, Mr. Terrell has offered the parish PSA announcements so that if you have an emergency, an Amber Alert with a child or whatever, all they have to do is call him. He'll place whatever public service announcement the parish would like to put on it as a business citizen.
Okay. I don't see any other questions from the board. Mr. Daly, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This may be another legal question. I'm just glad we're not dealing with abandonment right now. But we can't issue a variance on something that's non-conforming because we're not varying from, what's there. Can we issue a variance on what, by code, they're allowed to have as signage?
Right, so you could only vary it up to our current codes. You could
Right.
only vary it up to a 50% changeable message sign. You could not grant a variance for a 100% changeable message sign. That would be illegal.
Yeah.
Well, wait, so Ms. Cuvion, though, what I was told, though, in the Attorney General's, the District Attorney's Office was the parish could negotiate a trade-off to minimize new signage and new sign clutter by approving this. So even though it's non-conforming, to provide a negotiation to prevent 4 new signs in lieu of just 1 existing sign, they do have the right to do that.
I have not seen any alternatives put forward for a multi-occupancy sign, and I am aware of those meetings and what was discussed at those meetings,
Okay.
and stand by the legal advice I've given today.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? Can I have a motion?
Totally on a motion. I'm not sure what we want to do here.
Well, let's see. We have a request for a variance before us to be able to do something with this sign. So let's see what we have in the way of a motion, and then maybe we can see what we want to do.
Okay.
And I just also wanted to clear up that although this did come to the BOA initially as a variance application, it's actually on your agenda today as an appeal of a decision of the planning department for a refusal to grant the permit to make the sign less non-conforming. So I just want to clarify that for the record.
Mr. Blash.
Just, I guess, one more question about this sign. I guess maybe Mr. Coogan can address this. If we were to go back to the original idea of what would be conforming at this point, which was potentially be 4 signs, and we did negotiate with you a 50% sign in terms of changeable message, is that the technology, does that technology exist where you could just have half of the sign
Yes, sir, it is.
static and then the other?
I thought there was artwork in your packet that showed North Park Automotive Group on one half, that would stay stationary, and the other half would be the changeable side.
Okay, yeah, I do see it then, okay. All right, well, if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to offer a motion on this.
I'm sorry.
I'm prepared to offer a motion for case,
Please make your motion.
okay, BOA case number 2021-2574. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion that the, and I'm not sure how to word this because it's not going to be on the, let's see, how would I say this now? This is a little.
To overturn the decision of the planning department to allow the applicant to place a 50% changeable message sign.
That's what, that would be great. That's great help. That's my intent. I just couldn't put it into words for that.
What she said.
Okay.
I'll try to just rephrase it. A motion to overturn the decision of the planning department to allow the applicant to place a 50% changeable message sign at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, that's,
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve a variance to grant a 50% changeable sign. And a second. Any further discussion?
It just worries me about the discussion about what can we do. I guess we can obviously overrule a staff decision, but as far as the next step, so that doesn't necessarily grant the variance, right? That just overrules that decision. There has to be a next step of actually granting it.
I believe there's a permit application.
Yeah.
That needs to be filed with your office, is that correct?
Yeah. Okay.
May we have, I would like to clarify here. I have a drawing, or we have a drawing of the sign, and on one side, there's a vehicle. On the other side, it advertised, maybe pricing. And so which part, this is the part where we have the pricing that would be changeable?
The inside half would be a blue background with white letters that would say North Park Automotive Group. And the other half on the street side would then be changing.
Okay, so just want to bring to your attention that, all signs have to have a dark background with light lettering. So you'll have to request another variance if you want to go with a light background.
It would be blue background with white lettering.
Okay. Oh, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you said,
Blue background with white lettering reading North Park Automotive Group.
okay. Sorry for the misunderstanding,
Okay,
sir.
no problem.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. We have a comment here from staff.
Do you mind if I clarify, just for the benefit of staff, when this
Second.
application is made? I just want to be sure what's being said today. So the sign that came before you all was the total square footage is changeable message. And we're saying the motion is to overturn the decision made by a parish official that half of the sign face can be changeable message. But that is not the sign that was presented to you. So Mr. Coogan or the applicant would have to present a new sign rendering?
Is it one side is changeable and the other side is just static? Is that what's going on?
That's what it is.
That's my motion, right.
I have artwork to show that if you want it.
We don't have that one.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so, you both keep the artwork there. I was thinking it was gonna be one entire side static, and then the reverse side, changeable message. And that would be 50% on one side, 50% on the other side. Am I incorrect?
Well, we'll see.
So it's gonna be split on both sides?
It's-
Is it one side?
It's split on both sides, because if you do it the way you're saying, one side is 100% and the other side is 0%, so.
Well, my intention was the face would match the back, in other words, in terms of changeability and static.
I'm
So you have the option that's 100% on one side, static, 100% changeable on the other side?
I think they try to prefer getting it in both directions and doing 50-50. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Who's second? Who's second the motion?
Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second before the board. Any other discussion?
Are we voting to override the
Yes. Planning,
guy?
And I guess we're not overriding totally the decision. From what I understand, the decision was originally that they would reject the sign completely. What we've done is basically modified an arrangement to allow for at least half of that as
So we don't have to vote the other way to veto the other one or whatever?
No, I think that this motion that Mr. Blaish made would adequately address the relief sought and the decision of the parish officials.
Okay, all right.
all right. We have a motion and a second. Please vote with your screen. Motion failed.
Mr.
Oh,
No vote?
it shows you, Ms. Thomas, it shows you as a no vote.
Well, I tried to vote.
You want to re-vote?
What's your vote? You can do it
Let's revote.
May I verbally do it? I agree. I'm a yay. Signing off here now.
So if you are a yay, then the motion would pass.
Correct.
Are we good? No, she's writing. Are we
Okay,
good to
so
go?
we have 4 yays and 1 nay,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next case. The next case is BOA case number 2575, BOA. Request by applicant in an A4 single-family residential zoning district to reduce the required front setback from 25 feet to 6 feet to allow for the construction of a front porch with stairs. The property is located at 220 Jacqueline Drive in Slidell. The owner representative is Charles David or David. Is Mr. David here?
I'm Mr. David's wife, and I had put my
Oh,
name
I'm
on
sorry.
the speaker card.
Staff comments, please.
Just a moment. The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a 48-square-foot front porch with stairs. As shown in the attached site plan, the existing residence is currently 12 feet from the front property line. The proposed stair would impede 6 feet into the front setback, leaving a distance of 6 feet from the front property line. There's no compelling reason to be in favor of the request, considering that there's an existing staircase on the side allowing access to the residence. The requested variance is a personal preference rather than a property hardship.
Please state your name and address, and
My name is Cheryl David, and the property address is 220 Jacqueline Drive in Slidell, Louisiana. And the request that we would like to do today, it is a hardship. The existing stairs that are on the side of the property, they are, when we purchased the house, we did a total remodel of the inside to make it conform more to a home instead of a camp as it was originally built in the early 60s. And so now the door that is existing, that when you go up the steps, and I have pictures if y'all would like to see the pictures. But the stairs that go up, they would go into now what we have as the master bedroom. And that is the only entrance that the previous owners had into the property. So when we redid the inside of the house, their steps go into the master bedroom. So what we would like to do is on picture number 1, there's a well in the front of the house, and it is approximately 6 feet out. What we would like to do is take the porch and just protect the well, the pipes that come up, cover those so that no one, if someone drives into the property, the well's protected so that there's no damage to the water that goes to the house. So it would be out like right past that well, 6 feet. We would have a set of stairs that started underneath the house, came up to a landing, to another landing to go in, to make the house more, to look more like a home. All of the properties on our street, they do have front entrances. There is a new construction at the corner of the house, and his stairs are, the picture that I have for that construction is number 7. Those stairs are not there on that picture, but they are located there now, and they're less than 10 feet from the street. And so on the first picture, where our steps come out to the bottom, it's about 7 feet from the house. And so our porch, if you would allow us to build a front porch and have a front entrance, it would be inside the existing steps that are there that would go up and around to the back of the house.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? I'll look to the board for questions. Mr. Blash?
I'm looking at, I think it's picture number 3, the house, number 2, I'm sorry. And I can't really tell from the view. How far is that from the actual streetway right there? This one, number 2?
Are you, the porch to the right?
Yes, ma'am.
This picture she has here.
No, you talking about the porch on the house to the right?
Yes, ma'am.
How far is Angie's house?
Well, the porch on the front of her house is 17+ feet wide.
Right.
So she's about 12 or 14 feet from the blacktop.
Okay.
Our house is 32 feet from the edge of the blacktop. And we want to take 7 feet of that for that little small porch to keep, with the
Understand.
neighborhood that all have porches on it.
Right, understand.
And, but yeah, I can't give you a definite to the blacktop, but her porch, but I did measure her porch with her blessing, and it's 17 foot 6 inches, I think, from the front of her house out. And so is the neighbor on the backside, 17 feet out, as opposed to us hoping for 7.
Okay.
Is that good?
Okay. It seems as though we've had a few cases like this over and over in this area.
Yes,
It
I
keeps
think we
coming
have.
up and up and up, Yeah.
So I don't know, 4, 5, maybe 10 years, these cases come before us, because what happened, most of those camps, what they were called back then, had to be moved out of the water for insurance purposes, and we got most of those cases here, so.
Do I have any other questions or comments from the board?
I want to make a motion to grant the variance.
I have a motion to grant the variance. Do I hear a second? We have a second from Ms. Thomas. Any additional discussion on this case?
Yeah, I would just say this, normally when you have a variance, it keeps coming up and up and up again. Generally, it's time for a change to your zoning laws. Especially if it's continually, repeatedly being granted, it seems appropriate. That way you save time and effort on the board's half. And
All right, thank you very much. Now, do we
Wait-
just go?
wait a minute.
we haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted yet.
Excuse me.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, please vote with your screen.
Motion carries, all in favor.
All right, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
ma'am.
We just go to the permit and get an addition permit? Thank you very much.
The next case on the agenda is BOA case 2578. Request by applicant in an E4 estate zoning district to allow for the construction of an accessory structure within the front yard. The property is located north side of Bricker Road, being parcel D1, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant is Mr. Tom Sullivan. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of an accessory structure or a guest house within the front yard. While the property is 8 acres in size, allowing sufficient space for the construction of a main residence and an accessory building, it is bisected by a number of ravines, leaving minimal flat building area. As shown in the attached site plan, the proposed location would allow the accessory structure to be located outside of flood zone A and also to minimize the amount of dirt necessary to be brought on the property.
Thank you. Is Mr. Sullivan here? I have a card here. Mr. Tom Sullivan. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Thomas L. Sullivan, Jr. I'm at 708 Pine Grove Loop, Madisonville, Louisiana.
Any further comments?
Not unless y'all have some. My wife and I moved over here. We have a couple of special needs grandchildren, and I was in public office, as you are, for a long time, and so we didn't want to be in a subdivision, so we bought a pretty good sized tract of land. It's just very, very limited flat building area on it. So we would love to have building in the front yard kind of sounds ugly. It's an 8-acre tract, so there's plenty of room there. But we would like to have built it to the side or to the back. We just don't have room to do that, without hauling in a bunch of fill or doing anything like that. We don't want to violate anything. So that was our plan.
Very good, thank you. Is there anyone here in opposition to this request for variance? Seeing none, I would like to, any questions from the board for Mr. Sullivan? Seeing none, Mr. Bloch.
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, I'm just curious as to, it seems as though there are two building sites here on this plot that we've been provided with. Have you given any consideration to putting that larger structure to the front so it does conform to the zoning, and if not, why?
We're just too tight. We've got a setback line on the front road that we have to get back, and then we're trying to stay out of flood zone if at all possible, and then you start hitting a series of ravines there, so we just have minimal flat building areas. What's getting us.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I see a flat building area outside of the flood zone for the accessory structure in the front.
Right.
And I'm assuming in the back as well, obviously.
Right.
Couldn't you just flip those? I'm asking why that cannot be done.
We're trying to locate the main structure, our home on the back. There's an elevation change back there where the overflow from the Little Chibunksha River, water gets in it a lot, but it's nice to look at. Had big trees before the storm, but we wanted to be back there, and we're trying to get one of my oldest grandchild on his own and just get him in a place and get him started. And we didn't want to put him right next door to us. We wanted to, give him a little space on his own. It just wasn't enough room in the back for both houses. So
No, I understand. Okay. Yeah, my question was why couldn't you just invert them and still accomplish the same thing?
We want to get the good building area where the pretty trees are.
I understand. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sullivan from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion from the board on this case?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
We have a motion from Mr. Daly to approve the variance. Do I hear a second? We have a second from Mr. Brookter. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
Motion carries 4 yeas and 1 nay.
Mr. Sullivan, your variance request was approved.
Thank you so much for your time.
The next case for this afternoon is a BOA case number 2581. Request by an applicant in a single-family residential zoning district to reduce the required front yard setback from 30 feet to 25 feet to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. The property is located at 14324 South Lakeshore Drive, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant or representative is William Bruce and J. Renee Soshi. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a 5,594 square foot single-family residence. While the property is only 100 foot deep and slightly curved along the front, meeting the required front setback will not prohibit the construction of a single-family residence. The requested variance is a personal preference rather than a property hardship.
Is a representative here? Please step up to the mic, state your names and address, please.
Bruce and Renee Softji. Our current address is 15520 Madras Lane, where we're renting. which is just off Penn Mill Road, not far from this property, which is on South Lake Shore Drive in Lake Ramsey. Phase 1.
Do you have any additional comments for the board
Yes.
in support of this?
A little history, we bought 2 lots, Lot 86 and 87 in Phase 1, 2.5 years ago. We moved down here in March. In May, we recombined those 2 lots into one so we could build our home. That's called a resub. In June, this board approved a setback variance on the rear for us to put our porches. These are small lots. Our contractor here is Jerry Glover. We've hired him. We've had our plans completed based on that. And when we came here to get our building permits, we were told our front setback had changed from 25 feet to 30 feet, I guess because of the resub. So in your package there, the first 5 sheets are the original request we made in June that you all approved, and page 6 shows that. The 7th sheet is that survey that was filed and approved with chairman's signature showing 25-foot setback on the front. Every other home in Phase 1 of Lake Ramsey has a 25-foot setback. I appreciate the intent of the A4 regulations to limit density. A few points I'll point out in that. 4 units per acre, minimum 40,000 square feet per lot. Minimum width 90 feet. None of these lots in Lake Ramsey meet those requirements. They're much smaller. So to put this front setback on us seems unreasonable.
We just want to match what everybody else has and build our dream home we're still working on.
Please step back if you're done. Is there anyone here in opposition to this request for variance? Seeing none, open it to the board for questions or comments. I have 2. Is that appropriate for me to ask a question? Please come back up. Got 2 questions. If you satisfy the setback as you want it, will the one house, if I'm looking at the lot, the one house way down to the left, it's hard to tell, but the one to the right, all the fronts of the houses, will they line up? So one's not.
I believe that's correct.
Yes.
Your contractor said yes. Okay, second question is, what about approval from the neighbors or the HOA, or do you have it?
So when we were here the first time, the issue was the rear setback and not blocking somebody else's view of the lake. We had letters from neighbors on both sides in approval for that. This will have no effect on anybody. But the front will just be lined up with everybody else.
So the answer to my question was no.
No.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Someone have a motion on this case? Can I make a motion? No. No? I can't make a motion. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion on BOA case number 2021-2581 that we approved as submitted.
I have a motion from Mr. Blash to approve the variance as requested. Do I hear a second? Second. Got a second from Ms. Thomas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
Mr. Blush,
I'm
Mrs.
trying to-
Thomas,
Yeah, it's just blanking.
okay. All in favor, motion carries.
Thank y'all so much.
Variance passed.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. The next case is BOA case number 2582, BOA BOA. Request by applicant in an A4A single-family residential and A2 suburban zoning districts to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 20 feet and the rear yard setback from 24 feet to 20 feet as follows. Do I need to read all those? No, I'll read it. Okay, square 2, lots 1 through 10, front setback of 20 feet. Square 2, lots 11 through 16, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. Square 3, lots 1 through 16, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. Square 4, lots 9 through 16, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. Square 10, lots 11 through 14 and 19, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. Square 11, lots 1 through 6 and 11 through 18, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. Square 12, lots 1 through 16, front setback 20 feet, rear setback 20 feet. The property is located at River Park Estates, Phase 2 subdivision, Covington, Louisiana. The representative is River Park Estates. Staff comments, please.
River Park Estates is a subdivision of record which was established or approved in the 1950s. Considering that for the most part, the lots do not meet the minimum square footage required under the A2 suburban zoning district, the lots of record setback requirements applicable for those lots in questions are 25 feet in the front, and in a rear yard setback would be 20% of the lot depth or up to 25 feet. The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of larger single-family residences on lots being an average of 7,200 square feet. There's no compelling reason to be in favor of the request, considering that meeting the required front and rear yard setback requirements will not prohibit the construction of a single-family residence.
Who is here representing?
Paul Marone this afternoon on behalf of River Park Estates LLC, Mr. Vice Chairman.
I'm Chairman.
Chairman, you need to change your placard.
Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property, which is River Park Estates Phase 2, is located north of Covington off of Highway 25. As Ms. Lambert noted, this is a subdivision of record, which just means that it's a subdivision that was created and platted before the subdivision and zoning ordinances of St. Tammany Parish were in place. So it was actually created in the 1950s. Today, though, the property is zoned A2 with a very small portion in the northwest corner, A4A. That's significant because A2 is a zoning category under the current Unified Development Code that requires acre density, where you're dealing with lots that are about an acre in size. So with that being the driving factor, the setbacks likewise are generally set based on what that zoning is. And the result is significant on these lots because the lots in River Park Estates Phase 2 are much, much smaller than you would typically see in an A2 zoning category. The lots are 60 by 120, so very small lots in that respect, much smaller than contemplated by the A2, which gives rise to what we believe is the hardship that we're facing with regards to these setbacks. So we have a current zoning and required setbacks that are really for a zone and a development that doesn't fit what is actually on the ground out there as far as the lot sizes go. And that's the reason that the request comes before you today. We're asking to reduce the front and the rear, as Mr. Ballantyne read into the record, to 20 feet on those setbacks. So our position is, and we would respectfully suggest to you, that given the size of the lots, that the setbacks required are excessive and overly restrictive and overburdensome. That if we came in today with lots of this size, that we think more suitable setbacks would be the 20 that we're proposing, or perhaps even smaller than that. And so we think that it would be compatible and consistent with the lot size if the variance were granted for the setbacks that we're asking. It is our desire, or the desire of the builder on the project, to be able to construct some larger and more valuable homes. That's what the market has dictated in the area. The problem that we have in doing that is that we are limited by these setbacks. Given the hardship that's in place, and given the unique nature of what we have out there, we would ask that you consider granting the variance this evening or this afternoon. I do not believe that granting of the variances would set any type of precedent. You have the unique situation where you have a lot of record, subdivision of record that is inconsistent with what the zoning is on top of it. So that gives rise to a unique situation. So granting the variance for these setbacks would not be applicable to anybody else that wanted a variance unless they were in a similarly situated circumstance where they had a lot of record in a subdivision of record that had a zoning that was inconsistent with that. Also, we would suggest to you that granting the variance would not have a negative impact on any of the surrounding neighbors or any of the property owners. We're still proposing quite large setbacks at 20 feet. So it's, we're not 5 feet or 10 feet from the property line. We're still quite set back and would not be inconsistent or have any negative impacts on our surrounding neighbors in any way. So with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the board members may have at the appropriate time, but we would respectfully request granting of the variance under the circumstances that I've laid out this afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Maroon. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? Seeing none, any discussion from the board? Questions from the board? Mr. Blush?
Yeah, Mr. Maroon, if I could just ask a question real quick with regards to the other lots, I say on Catherine Street, if you can understand what I'm talking about, between River Park and Catherine, those lots appear to be very similar in size, and the home's already on there, if you're following me.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and I'm assuming those lots in that next block, say to the west, if I'm looking at this correctly, would be similar in size as well, that it'll be plotted out?
That's
Okay.
correct. That's correct.
What are the existing rear and front yard setbacks at this time for those existing homes right there?
25 and 25 on those existing.
Okay.
That's correct. So on the vacant squares that you see to the west of those, Mr. Blosh, are basically the areas that we're talking about, and that's where we would hope to be able, that's where we're requesting it, where there would be some larger homes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Yeah.
You have a question, sir?
I guess I have a question, just administratively, is this sort of a preferred method rather than a rezone application for the subdivision?
Even if the property would be rezoned, it would not achieve or resolve
The setback issue?
Yeah.
I'm confused. Madam Secretary, you mentioned what is the size of the houses that we're going to put in there? How many square feet are the houses?
Averaging about 2,500 square feet.
Thank you. I was confused. The size of the lots are 7,200 square feet. And so about 2,500, okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this variance request. Going.
I think.
I guess I need clarification on what are the ramifications if this variance is not approved?
They will still be able to build houses. They will have to meet the current setback, which is 25 feet in the front and 25 in the rear, just like the other houses that are built in the same vicinity.
So is it going to affect the homes that are being built in some adverse way if they stick with the current code?
It will allow them, if they, the square footage of the home will be reduced. Instead of building 2,500 square foot houses as proposed, they will more than likely have to go with a smaller
Footprint.
a smaller square footage.
Okay.
Yeah. Respond, so to clarify, it's, we would have to build, as Ms. Lambert said, it's just that the market that we are seeing out there, we are having requests repeatedly for larger homes that we're not able to comply with because of the setbacks.
All right.
I'll make a motion to request that we grant the variance from the front yard setback from 25 to 20 feet and rear yard setback from 20 feet to 20, from 24 feet to 20 feet.
We have a motion from Ms. Thomas to grant the variance as requested. Do I hear a second? And a second from Mr. Brookter. So we have a motion and a second to grant the variance. Any other comment or discussion by the board? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
Mrs. Thomas?
It's blinking.
Oops. I think we missed you again.
We need a vote from Ms. Thomas.
It was on and then it came off.
Okay, it's been doing that. Yes, my vote is yes.
Ms. Thomas votes yes.
So we have
In the-
4 yeas and 1 nay.
So the request for variance passes. The last case for today is a BOA case number 2588, a BOA. Request by an applicant in an A2 suburban district to waive the required 25-foot setback for a pond on the southern rear property line for parcel A1 and the northern front property line for parcel A2. The property is located at 515 Brewster Road and 515 Brewster Road and 519 Brewster Road, Madisonville, Louisiana. The applicants and representative are Karen and Irvin Robinson and Jennifer and John Martinez. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a pond across the property line. There's no objection to the request since the proposed pond will provide adequate drainage for both parcels of land in a centralized location. Should the board be in favor of the request, it should be subject to the following: provide a maintenance agreement stipulating that the property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the pond, and also meeting all minimum standards requirements for a pond and apply for a permit.
Is there somebody here representing this case? Please come forward and state your names and address, please.
Good evening, Lee Robinson, 519 Brewster Road, Madisonville, Louisiana.
Good evening, John Martinez, 515 Brewster Road.
And I did want to state for the record that we did get authority from our wives to represent them.
Any further comment about the case, or?
I mean, just really, I think we're both the property owners, so that was it. We're both in agreement for the pond.
Any questions from the board on this issue?
Do you agree to provide the maintenance agreement and meeting all the other standards and apply for the permit?
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay.
I was just going to add that I see a lot of pauses in this as I was reading the case, in that from a retention perspective, that's really awesome to help out that way. Only question and concern I have is if the properties are sold out of, because I'm assuming you're related, Martinez?
Well, we good friends for a very long time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Robinson and Martinez. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
I'm no
Okay.
Jennifer. Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to put any sort of stipulation there with regards to access to the pond? I mean,
It will be part of their maintenance agreement.
Oh, that'll be part of the maintenance.
It would
Okay.
go with the documents of the lots.
Right, okay.
Passes in a sale.
Very good. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Mr. Brookter?
One question. Looking at the pond, will there be some type of drainage, and where would it drain to? You're not just gonna have a pond with just sitting water, right?
No, that's correct. So there's, I forget the term of it, but there's a little cut into it that would go into our property.
It will filter into the other 4.5 acres of
Correct.
property, if it overflows itself.
If it overflows, yeah.
So you will provide the appropriate drainage plans
Yes.
with
Yes,
your
ma'am.
application?
Yes,
Okay.
Does it satisfy your answer, your question?
Yeah, it answers my question, thanks.
Okay, any other, anything else from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Mr. Daly made a motion to approve the variance. Do I hear a second?
With the two stipulations, sir?
Oh, yes, I will add the stipulations of the maintenance agreement, and sorry, I put this one down. What was the second one?
Meaning standard requirements for a pond,
Standard-
apply for a permit to
Right.
include the drainage.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second on the
Second.
motion?
Second?
Second from Mr. Brookter. Any other discussion? Vote, please vote with your screen.
All in favor? Motion carries.
Unanimous?
Thank y'all very much.
Yep. Have
Appreciate
a
your
good night.
time.
Thank y'all.
Tell your wife we said hi.
All right, that concludes our cases for today. So we'll open it for any old business, and as the old person, do we need to, is somebody working on another alternate? We're on alternate short, is that correct?
Correct. Mr. Liner, do we have?
Mr. Liner, do we?
The council's looking at it.
Okay.
Parish council's considering who to appoint,
Okay, thank you.
so hopefully in the next month or two.
Okay. Our next meeting is on December the 7th. I believe that's right, Pearl Harbor Day. Yes, it will. Any other new business or old business? Yes, sir, Mr. Liner.
Just have a question for the board. We're doing our code rewrite right now, updating our Unified Development Code, and, we're kind of kicking around, how can we better serve the public and staff time? So one thing we were kicking around is, could we begin the BOA meetings at 10 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock? Reason being, planning commission, well, zoning commission, I guess, it's planning commission.
Zoning.
Zoning, because we're off a week, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's typically the first Tuesday, right? So zoning commission starts at 6. We've been having meetings that go to 10, 11, midnight at night. We'd like to consider bumping those up to 4 o'clock, but would not have the time in between 2, based on the agenda, and then preparing for a 4 o'clock zoning commission meeting. So just kind of wanted to throw it out there. You may be contacted by consultants. We're having to vet this through the administration, through the council, but just wondering if that was something that would become a no to say, go ahead and move forward with it. So I want to throw it out there.
I have no objection to it myself.
I have no objection. 10 o'clock's fine with me. How about the other board members?
I would have to drop off. I'm president of an organization that meets this same day, same day. So I would have to
What
resign.
time would that meeting end?
Not till about 12:30.
Okay.
It starts at 10 o'clock.
Got it.
So, I would not stand in the way just because I have another,
Well, who's to say they're more important than this meeting?
I'm president of that.
She's the,
But you're vice chairman. No, I'm just not to throw it out there, and that's everything that we need to consider, so,
Ms. Thomas, is that just the first Tuesday of the month?
It is.
Okay, so other Tuesdays would potentially be available earlier in the morning for you?
If it was a different Tuesday, I mean.
If it would be the second Tuesday of the month.
Always, and that's, that's just part of it's part of the cult I'm doing, so, is what it is. No, it's in the bylaws and all that, I would have to go to international and ask for change.
No, what I'm asking you is your meeting every Tuesday, or? the
Just
first?
this
Okay,
first
so if we would move the Board of Adjustments meeting to the second Tuesday of the month, would it work for you, or?
I could probably do that.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any worries, concerns, or?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I don't like standing midnight here. I feel for those people, Jesus. That's awesome.
And even doing it on the second Tuesday would be before planning, and the planning meetings don't tend to go as late anyway.
Okay, well, again, just thank you all for consideration, want to throw it out there and see what y'all thought, so.
Maybe it's first of the year?
Not that soon. No, it'll probably be the second quarter of next year.
Okay.
So I'd give everybody time to prepare if we happen to make that move.
We better adjourn the meeting because Mr. Spies is elected with his feet. Any other business?
Congratulations on our new chair and vice chair.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I barely made it for the vote.
It's both an honor and a pleasure to serve.
And something we also consider is per diems for the board. So when I was on the board at Jefferson Parish, I was on the board of zoning adjustments in Jefferson Parish. We were paid per diem, I believe we got paid $150 a meeting. So, we're also considering that as well. What's that?
I'll take food.
But, I think to be consistent would be like in the range of $100 a meeting.
Do we just lose $50 in that discussion?
Yes, you did, because you get 0 right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, so you gained 100, even though you lost 50.
This is really, really high math.
Yeah. We're worth a lot more, let me say. Okay. Anything else from the board? How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. See you next month.